This is a short story produced by StoryStream, created by Christopher A. Lee and narrated by Michael Doyle. Thank you for listening to this story. If you could leave the name of the city you are listening from, it might randomly get picked for our Zombie Snapshot series. And if you enjoyed this short story, please like and subscribe to the channel. March 27, 7:42 p.m., Eastern Flatlands, Canada. Somewhere off Route 132, the trees were still whispering winter's breath, even though the snow had mostly melted off the branches. Damp, gray clouds hung low, casting a bone-deep chill across the clearing. I sat on a fallen log with my .308 rifle across my knees, watching the tree line for movement. Nothing stirred but the occasional raven cutting through the sky. It had been a clean day. No deer spotted, but a moose had passed nearby earlier. Fresh prints, maybe less than an hour old. I didn't pursue, not because I didn't want the meat, but because something in the air felt off. It wasn't the usual solitude. I've hunted alone dozens of times. Hell, I live for it. Wealth bought me a lot of things, my land, my trucks, my bikes, but peace, only the woods ever gave me that. Until today. I first noticed it when I hiked out from my cabin this morning. The wind was still. Not gentle, still. No bird song, not a single squirrel chirping. That kind of silence sits on your shoulders. It ain't natural. Still, I pressed on. Spent most of the day hiking a ridge east of the creek that splits my property line. Sat for hours in a deer blind I built 3 winters ago. Radioed into base camp. Well, my wife, Rachel, just before noon. She didn't pick up. Left a voice message. Tell the kids I'll be back by dusk. Save me a plate. I hiked back toward the truck around 5 p.m. That's when I saw it. A column of smoke. Not like a chimney or someone burning brush. No, this was dark, thick, oily, rising from beyond the horizon, maybe where the town sits along the highway. That smoke carried weight with it. I could feel it, the way you feel a gun pressed to your ribs. Didn't like it. My first thought was a pileup on the Trans-Canada Highway. Maybe a fuel tanker went up. But there was no sirens, no distant wail of emergency crews, just more silence. I broke camp in under 10 minutes and made my way back to the truck. The Dodge Ram fired up fine, but the radio was static. I flipped through channels, even the French stations, nothing but white noise. That's when I noticed my phone had no service. Not a single bar. Out here, we get drop signals all the time, but not every tower, not every band. That's when the dread started to creep in. I drove down the logging trail slow, scanning the tree line. My gut told me something was wrong. My mind tried to explain it away. Solar flare, storm knocked out communications. But my instincts, the ones that have kept me alive on every hunt, said otherwise. By the time I reached the edge of my land, the sun was low and casting orange stripes across the snow-dusted earth. That's when I saw the first body. A young man, maybe mid-20s, lying in the ditch near the old wood marker off Route 132. Torn jacket, dried blood caked around his neck. I stopped the truck and stepped out, rifle at the ready. He didn't move. I called out. No response. I took a few cautious steps forward, barrel aimed low. His throat was gone. Not cut, not sliced, torn, like something ripped it out with teeth. I've seen coyotes do damage, but not like this. Not to a man this size, not without a struggle. There were no drag marks, no prints, just him, laying there like someone tossed him aside. That was the first time I whispered out loud, "What the hell's going on?" I didn't have time to find out. As I backed away, I heard a noise behind me. Not the crunch of snow, but the wet dragging sound of something moving through the trees. I spun around, rifle up, heart pounding. And that's when I saw her. A woman, half-dressed, barefoot, limping fast out of the trees. Pale, eyes rolled back like they were too dry to blink. Her mouth hung open, bits of flesh stuck to her chin like old jerky, blood on her nightshirt. She saw me and ran. Not walked, not limped. She charged. I shouted at her, "Stop! Stay back!" No response. I fired. The bullet hit her square in the chest, but she didn't stop. She stumbled, yes, but kept coming. It wasn't until I shot her in the head that she fell, and even then, she twitched for almost 30 seconds. I stood there frozen, panting. Not from fear, from disbelief. She was dead, no doubt about that. But she didn't die right. Nothing about that made sense. I checked her pockets. No ID, no phone. Just a blood-soaked tissue and a ripped hospital bracelet. Something is happening. Something bad. I drove home in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. The front door was open. Not wide open, just cracked. Like someone left in a hurry. I didn't even take the keys out. I grabbed my pistol from the glove box and went inside. "Rachel?" I called. "Boys, you home?" Silence. I checked every room. Empty. The back door was smashed. Glass everywhere. Blood on the handle. Too much to be nothing. Not enough to be certain. I don't know if they were taken or if they ran, but I know they're not here. I left a note on the fridge in case they come back. I'm heading into town. I'll check the school, the hospital, your sisters. Stay hidden, stay armed. I love you. D. I loaded the truck with supplies. Rifles, ammo, dried food, bottled water, medical kit, sleeping bag. I filled both fuel cans and strapped my motorcycle to the rear hitch platform. I've got a .45 on my hip, a Remington 870 under the back seat, and my old hunting knife clipped to my boot. If this is the end of the world, I'm going into it prepared. I don't know what's waiting in town. I don't know if my family's alive. But I know this. The silence today wasn't right. The world feels wrong. Like the air itself is holding its breath. Something's broken, and I'm going to find out what. End of entry. March 23rd, 4:05 a.m., eastbound Highway 132. I didn't sleep. I tried. Back in the truck, after barricading the front and back doors of the house and setting up motion sensors on the porch. But my mind wouldn't shut down. I kept hearing her. The woman I shot in the woods. The wet slaps of her bare feet. That horrible gasp as her skull split open. When I closed my eyes, I kept seeing Rachel's coat hanging by the door. One of the boys, baseball gloves lying under the coffee table. Familiar things, lifeless now, quiet. I left at 2 a.m., didn't want to wait for daylight. If they were hurt, they'd need help. If they were hiding, I needed to find them before whatever did this found them first. The truck's high beams cut through the night like blades. Highway 132 looked like a war zone in places. Burnt-out cars, a jackknifed semi, blood on the snow near the ditch. The worst was a school bus smashed sideways into a utility pole. No lights, windows broken, blood all over the yellow paint. No sign of the kids or driver. I didn't stop. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I can't save ghosts. Halfway to town, I saw my first real group of them. They were gathered around a flipped SUV, maybe 6 or 7 of them. At first, I thought they were helping. The way their arms moved, frantic, like pulling something. But when I got close, I saw what they were really doing. Feeding. There was a woman half pulled from the driver's seat. Still alive. Twitching. One of the things had its teeth buried in her calf. Another had both hands inside her chest. They didn't look up when I stopped, didn't flinch at the engine. They were too far gone. I did what I had to do. Rolled down the window, took the 308 off the passenger seat. One by one, I dropped them. Clean headshots, no hesitation. The last one, a man in a bloody parka, looked right at me before I pulled the trigger. His eyes weren't dead. They weren't alive either. They were hungry. I'll never forget them. I climbed out, boots crunching on ice, and checked the SUV. The woman was dead, torn open like an animal. I don't even think she saw me. I took her wedding ring, wiped the blood, and tucked it in the glove box. Someone should remember her. I drove on. The town came into view around 3 a.m. A red haze lit the horizon from something still burning. I could see silhouettes of buildings, familiar places I used to take the boys to. Now they looked like paper cutouts against a hellish sky. I passed the gas station first. Esso off the main drag. The front windows were smashed in, pumps covered in frost and ash. Inside, I saw a corpse twitching behind the counter. A clerk, maybe. Could have been Jake. He used to give my youngest gum when we stopped in. I didn't go inside. Next was Sobe's grocery store, burned halfway to the ground. Fire had gutted the loading dock and left the aisles exposed to the night. I could see twisted carts, burnt cereal boxes, shattered beer bottles glittering under moonlight. No bodies, just ruin. Farther down, I reached the hospital, if you could still call it that. Every window on the second floor was broken, curtains flapping in the wind. 2 police cruisers sat in front, doors wide open, lights off. One of the doors was stained with blood and handprints. I stopped 100 feet back and turned off the truck, left it idling. I needed to know if they were inside. I slung the Remington over my back, drew the .45, and crept toward the main entrance. The automatic doors were shattered inward, leaving a sharp-toothed mouth of broken glass. I stepped through slowly, watching the shadows. Inside was worse than anything I expected. Blood smeared the tile floor like a painter had gone mad. Gurneys overturned, wheelchairs with no riders. One was spinning slowly, like it had just been pushed. I moved through the main corridor, calling softly. Rachel? Ethan? Tyler? Nothing. I checked the emergency wing. Doors swung on broken hinges. Medical trays scattered. A trail of blood led into room 107. I opened it with the barrel of the shotgun. 2 nurses, 1 patient, all dead, and all partially eaten. One of the nurses had her face peeled back to the skull. The patient, an elderly man, was missing most of his lower body. A gurney had been pushed against the wall like someone tried to barricade themselves in and failed. I left that room and kept moving. The maternity wing was next. I didn't want to go in. I really didn't. But if Rachel had brought the kids here to help someone, to shelter, this is where they'd be. The air changed the second I stepped inside. It was colder, stiller. Then I heard the crying. Not a baby, someone sobbing. I followed it inch by inch, past the nursery, past the surgical suites, toward a dim hallway lit by one flickering emergency light. That's when I found her. A woman, mid-30s, blonde, shaking behind a nurse's station with a fire axe gripped in both hands. She had blood on her coat and a smear of it across her face. When she saw me, she raised the axe. "Back up," she screamed. I put my hands up, showing the pistol, not aiming it. "I'm not infected," I said. "I'm looking for my family. Wife, 2 kids, Rachel, Ethan, Tyler Fryer." She stared at me for a long moment, then slowly lowered the axe. "I haven't seen them," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "I've been hiding since yesterday morning. There were dozens of them, patients, staff. They turned fast, biters, screamers. I barely made it out of pediatrics alive." "What's your name?" I asked. "Michelle," she said. "I was a nurse here." "Was?" She looked down. "I don't think this place will be open much longer." I offered her food, water, shelter, told her I had a truck. She hesitated, then nodded. "I won't survive alone," she whispered. "I've seen what they do." We made our way out together. I kept my weapon drawn the entire time. Michelle carried the axe like it was her last lifeline. Maybe it was. When we reached the truck, I let her in and double-checked the perimeter. That's when we heard the scream. Not human. Something else. It came from across the street. From the elementary school. A high-pitched shriek, like metal grinding on bone, echoed through the night. Michelle grabbed my arm. "That's the thing I told you about. It's not like the others." She was trembling. I didn't ask her to explain. I didn't want to know. Not yet. I fired up the truck and got us moving. Fast. I don't know what was in that school, but it wasn't something I wanted to meet in the dark. We're parked now, outside the old Petro-Canada station south of town, behind the service bay. Quiet for now. Michelle's asleep in the back seat, curled up under a sleeping bag. I'm writing this by flashlight, hands still shaking. I have no sign of Rachel or the boys. No clue where they went. But I'll find them. I have to. End of entry. March 23rd, 6:38 p.m. Outside Brockville, Ontario, Elmsley Road. I knew before we got there that it wouldn't end well. Rachel's sister, Natalie, lived in a small yellow farmhouse about 30 kilometers south of town, just off Elmsley Road, near the river bend. She and her husband, Mike, owned a small mechanic's garage in town, and their back porch overlooked a maple grove where the kids used to play when we visited for summer barbecues. I took that route now, not for nostalgia, but because I had nowhere else to look. Michelle sat silently in the passenger seat, arms wrapped around that axe like a child clutching a stuffed bear. She hadn't spoken much since last night. Didn't blame her. We were both surviving minute to minute. Fuel was down to a quarter tank. The warning light flickered every time I hit a bump. We hadn't seen a working gas station in 2 towns. I was down to 6 shells in the Remington, 1 loaded mag in the .45, and a handful of loose rounds in the glove box. It was getting bad. Worse, my hands had started to shake, not from fear, but hunger. We split a stale protein bar for breakfast. Michelle refused her half at first, said she wasn't hungry. I insisted. Her eyes betrayed her. We reached Natalie's place around 5 p.m. The sun was low, filtering through the trees like golden dust. It would have been beautiful, if not for the front door hanging wide open and the blood smeared across the welcome mat. I parked the truck down the lane and approached slow, Remington raised, Michelle just behind me. There were no birds, no dogs, not even the hum of flies. Just wind whispering through the trees and the faint smell of rot. I stepped onto the porch. "Natalie?" I called out. "It's Damon. You in there?" Silence. We moved inside. The living room was chaos. Couch overturned, TV smashed, coffee table broken in 2. There were drag marks across the floor, like someone had been pulled screaming through the house. I found the first body in the kitchen. Mike, or what was left of him. He was pinned against the fridge with a fireplace poker through his chest. His face was torn open, jaw unhinged, tongue hanging loose. Dried blood coated the floor in thick black streaks. His eyes were glassy and wide, staring at nothing. Michelle gagged but didn't cry out. We moved through the house room by room. Blood smeared across door frames. A child's shoe on the stairs. Natalie's cell phone buzzing weakly on the hallway table. Screen cracked. Battery flashing red. I found a note on the fridge. Took Emma and Ryan to the neighbors. Mike turned. Had to do it. "If we're not back by morning, don't come looking. Name." I took a breath and folded the paper into my pocket. "Check the basement?" Michelle asked, barely above a whisper. I nodded. The door creaked as I opened it. The basement stairs were steep, old wood, each one groaning under our weight. My flashlight beam swept across piles of canned goods, stacked crates, and hunting gear. Then we heard it. Thump, scrape, thump. It was coming from behind the old water heater. I raised the Remington and stepped forward. Then it lunged. A blur of rot and sinew exploded out from the shadows. Thin, fast, spider-like. Its limbs were stretched grotesquely, jointed wrong. It shrieked, a high, distorted, childlike laughter that echoed off the walls. Michelle screamed. I fired. The slug caught it in the neck, spinning it sideways. It crashed into a shelf, scattering tools and jars. But it didn't stop. It scuttled, yes, scuttled, across the floor on all fours, moving like it didn't have bones. I fired again. Missed. Michelle swung the axe, catching its side. It let out a piercing shriek, like metal grinding glass, then launched itself onto her. She fell backwards, screaming, as its clawed fingers scraped her jacket. I rushed forward, grabbed it by the spine, and pulled. It whipped its head back, snapping at me with blackened teeth. I shoved the barrel of the Remington under its jaw and pulled the trigger. Boom. It fell limp. A long moment passed. We sat there, breathing hard, surrounded by broken glass and blood. Michelle was shaking. The thing's body twitched once more, then stilled. "What the hell was that?" she said finally. "I don't know," I replied, "but it's not the first time I've seen something worse." We burned the corpse in a barrel out back. Too risky to bury it. I used some of Mike's leftover diesel and a matchbook from their wedding. Afterward, I searched the garage. Found a jerry can of fuel, half full. A few boxes of .308 rounds and a first aid kit. No food, but a stash of water bottles and a working ham radio. I tried the signal. Static. But the log sheet had something written on it. 1445 megahertz, military chatter. Ontario base, avoid Route 15, high activity. Survivors fleeing Kingston. Eastern evac compromised. Stay inland. Avoid coastal towns. Quarantine failed. The writing was hurried, scrawled in Sharpie. Michelle looked at me as I reread it. "That means this isn't just here, does it?" I shook my head. "It's everywhere." She nodded once. "Then where do we go?" I looked at the map pinned to the wall beside the workbench. Elmsley, Perth, then west. Away from Kingston. Away from everything burning. "We go inland," I said. "Northwest, until we find high ground, fuel, or people we trust." I took Natalie's hiking pack, filled it with gear, and grabbed one of Mike's sidearms. A 9mm Beretta with 2 mags, loaded, clean. We left the house just after sunset. Back on the road now. We're parked under a bridge far from the main road. The truck's engine is off. I've stacked pallets and sheet metal around the tires to hide the shape. Michelle's asleep again, but she twitches now, like she's dreaming of that thing in the basement. Can't blame her. Neither of us will forget what we saw. That wasn't a zombie. That was something evolved. Or worse, created. I'm not sure which is more terrifying. Tomorrow we'll keep moving. There's a gas station a few clicks up the road. It might be dry, but it might not. We have to try. Supplies are low. I've only got 5 shotgun shells now. 1 for each of them. And maybe 1 for me, if it comes to that. But I won't give up. Not yet. Not until I know what happened to Rachel, to the boys. Not until I see them. End of entry. March 24, 3:11 p.m. Abandoned fuel stop, Highway 15 west of Elmsley. We ran out of gas just outside of what used to be a Petro-Canada. I knew it was coming. The gauge had been bouncing on empty since sunrise. We coasted the last 100 yards into the lot and rolled to a stop behind the burned-out shell of a sedan. The station sign still swayed in the breeze. Faded letters flaking off, advertising hot coffee and diesel like it mattered. Michelle didn't speak. She just looked at me with that wide, tired stare. Like if I told her it would be okay, she'd believe me, because the alternative was too much to bear. The building looked intact. The roof had buckled slightly on the left side, but the front windows were boarded and the doors chained from the inside. I counted 3 vehicles in the lot. None looked drivable. One still had a charred skeleton behind the wheel. "I'll check the pump," I told her. She nodded and crouched by the truck, axe ready. I approached carefully, keeping the Remington tight to my shoulder. The pump hoses had been sliced and left dangling like torn veins. No power, no pressure. But there was a shed behind the station. Maybe an emergency generator. Maybe a chance. The shed door was busted open, hinges twisted. Inside, I found a large fuel drum half filled with diesel, 2 empty gas cans, and a mangled corpse slumped near the wall. No head. I stepped around the mess, grabbed the gas cans, and started siphoning. Took 15 minutes to fill both. I slung them over my shoulder and headed back to the truck. That's when I heard the gunshots. Sharp, controlled bursts. Close. I dropped the cans and sprinted back. Michelle was already ducked low beside the truck, her head peeking over the hood. "North tree line," she whispered. "Somebody's pinned down." Another burst cracked through the silence, followed by screaming. Not zombies. People. I pulled the rifle from the cab and crawled around to get a look. 3 men were hunkered down behind a flipped trailer about 70 yards away. Another man in a police uniform was standing out in the open, wild-eyed, screaming at nothing, firing wildly into the woods. "Is he nuts?" I muttered. Michelle whispered, "He's drawing them." And he was. From the trees, figures began to emerge, shambling, twitching, limping fast. At least 15. One of them had a crowbar still lodged in its chest. Another dragged a broken leg but still moved fast. Too fast. The officer didn't back down. He charged, shouting something about orders and quarantine. I could see the whites of his eyes from where I knelt. He wasn't all there. He fired twice, hitting one in the neck. Then they swarmed him. It was brutal. They tore him apart in under 10 seconds. But the others used the distraction. The 3 survivors made a break for it, toward the station. One limped. One carried a bat. The third held a pump-action shotgun. I stood up and fired, dropped one of the infected. Then another. Michelle joined me with the axe, swinging low and wide as a crawler reached our flank. I reloaded and kept firing. By the time the last infected fell, the 3 survivors were at our truck, panting, bleeding, but alive. The one with the bat was a skinny kid, barely 20. "Thanks, man," he gasped. "They came out of nowhere." The one with the shotgun had hard eyes and a stitched-up arm. "You military?" "Hunter," I said, and pissed off. We all laughed, more out of shock than humor. The third, the limper, sat down hard. His leg was bleeding, bone visible. "Name's Derek," he grunted. "Don't suppose you got a med kit?" Michelle knelt beside him instantly. I was a nurse. That left me with the one question I didn't want to ask. Who was the cop? The shotgun guy answered, said his name was Briggs. Found him 2 days ago near the city checkpoint. He lost his mind last night. Kept talking about how we were already dead. Said his family was reassigned. Reassigned? I repeated. He said it like it meant something. Government code maybe? I don't know. We patched Derek up as best we could and refueled the truck. The new arrivals asked to join us. Normally, I'd have said no, but I needed the help, and there was something in their eyes. They'd seen the same things we had. I agreed, but I kept my rifle close. We spent the rest of the afternoon checking the station. Found a few supplies, canned chili, bottled water, a battery-powered lantern, and some old maps. One marked with circles along Route 38. Safe zones maybe? Or traps? Michelle and I sat by the truck as the others slept inside. "I don't trust the shotgun guy," she said. "Neither do I. But I trust you," she added. I nodded, but I didn't look at her. Don't make that a habit. The day's ending now, the sun dipping below the hills, painting everything in orange and ash. There's something out there. I feel it watching. I felt it since we left the house. Briggs saw something that broke him. Maybe he snapped because of what he lost. Or maybe he saw what's coming and realized we don't win this. End of entry. March 25th, 9:27 p.m. Abandoned hardware store, outskirts of Sharbet Lake. We found the store by accident. After leaving the gas station, we stayed off the main roads, following backwoods trails and frozen logging paths. The truck barely made it over a washed-out bridge just past Bolton's Creek. Trees are beginning to bloom again, spring clawing its way in like it has no idea the world ended. We were nearly out of food. The last can of peaches went last night. Michelle tried to hide her piece of cracker again, like she always does. I saw her hand shaking when she thought no one was looking. The gash on her arm's getting worse. She won't say it, but I know. We couldn't go another day without supplies. I took Leo, Michelle, and Reed. Left Tyler and Derek to hold down the hardware store with Hannah. We drove in silence, only breaking it to check maps. The roads were snowmelt slick and mostly clear of bodies. Too clear. Leo didn't like it. Neither did I. The store sat crookedly, one corner sagging where the earth had buckled. The front doors were intact. Windows dusty but unbroken. No blood on the walls. No bodies in sight. I knew that was a bad sign. We split up. Michelle carried her axe, as always. I had my Remington ready, and Derek hobbled beside us with a hammer in one hand and a bottle of painkillers in the other. The shotgun guy, Leo, led the way with his weapon raised like a cop on a warrant call. I didn't like how comfortable he was. Inside was worse than we expected. Shelves were overturned, tools scattered, bags of soil spilled and congealed with dried blood. A lantern flickered in the far corner. Someone had been here, and recently. Tyler moved quietly, lifting wire cutters and shoving them in a duffel bag. I found a stash of nails, duct tape, propane canisters, and 2 crowbars. No guns, but plenty of makeshift weapons. Then we found the stairs. They led to a basement, door wide open, with deep blackness bleeding out like a fog. Michelle looked at me. "We don't have to go down there." "We do," I said. Derek stayed upstairs with Tyler. Leo and I descended first. Michelle followed. The basement smelled like mildew and rot. Cement walls, exposed piping, bags of fertilizer stacked against one wall, and cages. 3 of them. Empty, except for the one. Something inside moved when our flashlights hit it. I thought it was a dog at first, curled up, twitching. But as we got closer, I saw the limbs were too long, the skin pale and glistening, patches missing entirely. It had staples in its arms, IV lines still tangled around one leg. A surgical gown hung off its back like a shroud. Its eyes opened. They glowed faintly, milky, like it wasn't seeing us, but sensing something deeper. Michelle gasped. Leo whispered, "That's not right." The thing stood, slowly, too slowly. Bones cracked as it rose, vertebrae clicking like a zipper. Its mouth opened, revealing a jaw held together by twisted wire. No tongue, just a hollow, whistling rasp when it breathed. "What the hell is this?" I murmured. Then it screamed. Not a human scream, not even an animal's. It was a high-pitched, piercing screech, like metal being torn, echoing through our skulls. We all staggered. Michelle dropped her flashlight. Leo fired through the cage door. The blast hit it square, but it didn't fall. It ran, bent like a spider. It slammed against the bars, snarling, shrieking, eyes rolling back. Its fingers clawed at the rusted frame, pulling wires loose with impossible strength. "Upstairs!" I shouted. We ran. As we hit the stairs, the cage behind us burst open with a thunderous crash. The creature let out another shriek, and it echoed through the entire store. Tyler screamed from upstairs. "What the hell was that?" By the time we got back up, the shelves were rattling. Derek had drawn a box cutter. We circled up in the center of the store, forming a shaky perimeter. Then it came through the floor, right through the floorboards beneath the service counter. A blur of blood and sinew, the thing launched itself at Leo, knocking him to the ground. His shotgun clattered across the tile. The thing wrapped both hands around his neck and squeezed. Michelle swung her axe. I fired. The slug hit its shoulder and tore part of it off, but it didn't stop. It turned on Michelle, swiping at her with claws that looked like twisted surgical scissors. Derek limped forward and stabbed it in the back with the box cutter. It shrieked again, this time weaker, and collapsed. We all stood there in silence for a moment, panting, shaking. Michelle was bleeding, deep gash in her forearm. I wrapped it tight, told her to keep pressure on it. Leo didn't say a word. He stared at the creature's body, his hands trembling. "What the hell was that?" Tyler whispered. I stared down at it. "Something made," I said. "Not born, not infected, built." We dragged its body outside and burned it in the junkyard, pouring propane over it. The stench was unbearable. We found a locked cabinet in the office upstairs. 3 bottles of antibiotics, 2 flashlights, and a weather radio. Static mostly, but once, around 88.4 FM, we heard a voice. "Repeat, evac compromised. Kingston route overrun. Do not trust barricade checkpoints. Multiple breaches. Repeat, multiple breaches. Western Ontario may still be clear. And then silence. Leo finally spoke. We head west tomorrow, past Charbot. Follow the old farm roads until we hit 509. There's an old hunting lodge near Mississippi Station. I stayed there once with my uncle. It might still be intact. I nodded, but didn't reply. We set up a camp inside the store for the night, blocked the windows with shelves, lit one propane lamp, and kept the others off. Derek's out cold. Tyler's quietly sharpening a metal pipe with a rasp file. Michelle is resting. Her breathing is shallow. I told her it's just exhaustion, but I see the sweat on her brow, the way her hands shake. I don't know if it's just the wound or something worse. I keep hearing that scream. That thing down there wasn't random. It wasn't a zombie gone wrong. It was placed there, kept, experimented on, weaponized. We're not just dealing with the dead anymore. Someone's been trying to turn them into something else. And that makes this war a whole different beast. End of entry. March 26, 2:14 a.m. Charbot Lake Hardware Store, fortified interior. The wind is howling tonight. Not like a storm, like a warning. It pushes through every cracked seam of this broken down store, carrying with it the chill of something that doesn't belong in spring. We've barricaded everything. Michelle's asleep on a cot made from duct tape plywood. Tyler's curled up beside a shelf of rat poison. Leo is on the roof, watching with his shotgun. Derek's reading from an old pocket Bible he found wedged under the till. Me? I can't sleep. Not after what we saw in that basement. Not with that knock still echoing in my ears. It came 2 hours ago. 3 solid knocks. No yelling, no pleading. Just 3 slow knocks on the front barricade. We froze. I raised the Remington, finger tight on the trigger. Tyler reached for his crowbar. Michelle sat up, eyes wide. Leo climbed halfway down from the roof, whispering, "It's not the infected. They don't knock." He was right. That was the worst part. We unstacked just enough shelves to peek through. 2 figures stood outside, a man and a woman, covered in dirt and soot. The man's arm was in a sling. The woman clutched a bloodied backpack. Both looked half-starved, lips cracked, eyes sunken. The woman had a broken bat strapped to her back. The man held a kitchen knife like it weighed 100 pounds. She spoke first. "Please, just for the night, we're not bitten." I believed her, but that's not the same as safe. We closed the barricade and circled up. Leo said no, fast and loud. "We're barely surviving as it is. We add more, we risk more. Supplies are tight, ammo's tighter. We don't owe them anything." Tyler disagreed. "They're people, man. We can't just leave them to die. What if it was you out there?" "It was me," Leo snapped. "And I survived because I didn't trust anyone." Derek looked at me. "You're the reason we're alive, Damon. You've made the calls. You saved us from that freak in the basement. You tell us, what do we do?" I looked at Michelle. She didn't speak, but she was watching me. Her face pale, lips pressed tight. I saw the bandage on her arm, stained slightly darker now than it was yesterday. We didn't talk about it. I took a breath and said, "We let them in." Leo scoffed and stormed off toward the roof. I didn't stop him. We cleared the doorway and let the strangers inside. They gave their names, Hannah and Reed. Hannah used to be a schoolteacher in Perth. Reed worked at a bait shop. They'd been surviving in the woods, avoiding towns, scavenging what they could. Said they'd been following faint radio chatter about a safe zone near Napanee, but found only smoke and corpses. They thanked us 100 times. They didn't ask for food, only warmth. Tyler gave them one of our spare blankets and a few crackers. Michelle poured them each a cup of water. I watched the way Reed's hand trembled when he drank. They were no threat, but that didn't mean Leo was wrong. Later, while everyone else tried to sleep, I sat at the front of the store, writing by flashlight. I don't know if I made the right call tonight. Maybe Leo's right. Maybe kindness gets people killed. But I also remember what it felt like. Being on the outside, desperate, cold, hungry, wondering if the next house, the next knock, would be your last. We're not animals, not yet, and I intend to keep it that way, even if this world is trying its hardest to prove me wrong. End of entry. March 27th, 6:56 p.m., southwest of Mississippi Station, an overrun grocery outlet. It started with a smell. We thought it was a safe spot, just a roadside market about a mile south of Mississippi Station. The sign out front was faded, half buried in snow. Welcome to Hastings Market, fresh produce daily. Nothing fresh inside now, just rot. We were nearly out of food. The last can of peaches went last night. Michelle tried to hide her piece of cracker again, like she always does. I saw her hand shaking when she thought no one was looking. The gash on her arm's getting worse. She won't say it, but I know. We couldn't go another day without supplies. I took Leo, Michelle, and Reed, left Tyler and Derek to hold down the hardware store with Hannah. We drove in silence, only breaking it to check maps. The roads were snowmelt slick and mostly clear of bodies. Too clear. Leo didn't like it. Neither did I. The store sat crookedly, one corner sagging where the earth had buckled. The front doors were intact. Windows dusty but unbroken. No blood on the walls. No bodies in sight. I knew that was a bad sign. We split up. Michelle carried her axe, as always. I had my Remington ready. Reed hovered near the door, too rattled to step far inside. Leo prowled like a wolf. The produce section was useless, everything spoiled or frozen solid. But the pantry aisle still had sealed cans. Michelle moved fast, filling a duffel bag with beans, corn, some dog food. Leo found jerky behind the counter and nearly cried. That's when Reed screamed. We spun around, guns up, just in time to see him being dragged down an aisle by something that looked like it used to be human. Only it wasn't. It was tall, longer than it should have been, spine bent backward, like it had snapped, then healed wrong. Its mouth was open wider than I thought possible, jaw torn at the hinge, teeth crooked and cracked. It screeched as it clawed at Reed's leg, yanking him behind the meat coolers. Michelle was the first to move. She ran forward, swinging her axe. I followed, pumping the Remington. Leo barked something, two more, and fired behind us. Everything descended into chaos. I saw Reed's hands clawing the tiles. Blood streaked behind him. The creature had him by the calf, gnawing like a dog with a bone. I fired once, hitting it in the ribs. It didn't stop. Just looked up at me with black eyes and hissed. Michelle brought the axe down hard, splitting its skull clean in two. Reed screamed again, this time from deeper inside. That's when the second one hit. It came from above, the ceiling, dropped onto Leo and sent him sprawling. This one had no legs, just a trail of shredded muscle where its hips should be, crawling with its arms, dragging itself like a centipede made of rot. Leo shot it point blank. The blast filled the store with smoke and the scent of gunpowder and bile. The third creature wasn't seen. It was heard. A whimper, a squeak, then a child's distorted giggle. Michelle froze. From behind the broken freezer unit, a figure crawled out, small, malformed. Its limbs spidered out in impossible angles, head twitching, like it was listening to music only it could hear. It crawled right toward Michelle. She hesitated. I didn't. I fired. The slug tore it apart, but it let out a high-pitched shriek that shook the glass around us. Michelle dropped to her knees, coughing. I grabbed her arm, pulled her up. We're leaving. Now. Leo grabbed Reed, what was left of him, and we staggered back through the main entrance. Tires squealed as I reversed the truck out of a lot. The creatures didn't follow. They just watched from the windows, bloody silhouettes outlined in frost. We drove for 10 minutes before anyone spoke. Leo said, "What the hell were those things?" I didn't answer. Reed whimpered in the back seat. His leg was a mess, bone visible, puncture wounds blackening already. We didn't say what we were all thinking. He wasn't gonna make it. We pulled off the road behind a logging site, hidden beneath a tarp-covered stack of cut timber. I made a fire from pine and diesel, low and hot. Michelle took Reed's hand and whispered something to him. He didn't respond, just stared into the flames. I gave her the nod. She knew what it meant. I walked into the trees, sat on a log, let the sound of the fire and the crack of Leo's gun carry through the branches. When I came back, Michelle was standing alone. She didn't cry. She just nodded. We wrapped Reed in a tarp and buried him beneath the logs. A simple wooden cross marked the spot. Tyler carved his name later when we returned. Leo hasn't said a word since. That's fine. I don't have many left either. Michelle's getting worse. Fever spiked again tonight. Her eyes are bloodshot. She keeps scratching her bandage. I caught her muttering to herself when she thought no one was listening. I want to believe it's just infection. Just pain, but we both know it might be more than that. She saved my life twice now. I don't want to think about losing her. The road ahead leads west. We'll need to find shelter tomorrow. Maybe the lodge Leo mentioned. If it's still standing, it might buy us time. But tonight, I'm sleeping with the shotgun in my lap and the sound of that creature's giggle in my head. They're changing. They're evolving. And I'm not sure we can keep up. End of entry. March 28th, 9:02 p.m. Abandoned hunting lodge near Mississippi Station. We made it to the lodge by midday. The place was more intact than I expected. Leo wasn't lying. His uncle had built the place like a fortress. 2 stories of thick timber and concrete, wrapped in rusted metal siding, with reinforced doors and slit windows. Generator out back. Water catchment barrels still full. There was even a deer mount over the stone fireplace. It looked like a paradise in hell. Until we went inside. Dust and silence. No blood, no bodies. Just signs of departure. Cups still on the table, jackets on hooks, a half-played game of cards scattered across a side table. Like they left in a hurry, or expected to come back. We cleared it room by room. No infected, no corpses. But I found shell casings near the rear hallway. 5 of them, all recently fired. That meant one thing. Someone was here, and they fought something off. We didn't ask what. We posted Tyler on the roof and set up rotation for the night. I took first watch. The sun slipped through pine trees and bathed the lodge in orange light, like it was normal. Like we hadn't buried someone 2 nights ago and fought spider-limbed horrors in a grocery store. But we weren't normal anymore. Especially Michelle. She's not talking now. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. Her fever's burning hot, eyes glassy and wet. That wound on her arm? It's turning black along the edges. No pus, no typical infection signs, just a slow, creeping dark under the skin. I confronted her tonight after the others fell asleep. You need to tell me what's going on, I said. She sat on the couch, knees to chest, staring at the fire. I don't know, she said finally. It doesn't feel like the flu. Doesn't feel like anything I've had. You saw what happened to Reed. You saw what was in that store. She nodded. Then you know what I have to do. Her lip quivered. I'm not ready to die. I lowered my head. I'm not ready to kill you. That silence between us, it was worse than any scream. We agreed on a compromise. We give it 2 days. If it spreads, if she changes, she gives me permission to end it. Not Leo, not Derek, not Tyler. Me. I didn't want to say yes, but I did. Later, while taking stock of supplies in the kitchen, I overheard Hannah and Leo whispering near the stairwell. She's gonna turn, Leo said. We can't let her take us down with her. You don't know that, Hannah said, firm. I know what I've seen. You saw Damon take us in when no one else would. You saw Michelle fight harder than any of us. You think she deserves a bullet now? There was a pause. Leo's voice dropped. What I think is, Damon's gonna hesitate, and that'll get us all killed. I clenched my jaw. Michelle had saved Leo's life in the market, and now he wanted her gone. I wanted to bust through that door and put him in his place. But I didn't. Not yet. Because part of me was afraid he might be right. After all, hesitation in this world could be lethal. I returned to the main room and found Michelle passed out. Her breathing was shallow but steady. I sat beside her and fed more wood to the fire. Tyler came in from the roof a while later, said he saw movement on the ridge but couldn't confirm what. Might have been deer, might have been worse. We stayed quiet that night. No one spoke much, just the sound of fire and wind brushing the eaves. The lodge felt like it was holding its breath. When I tried to sleep, I couldn't. I kept thinking about Rachel and Ethan and Tyler. Where were they now? Were they somewhere like this, cold, scared, wounded? Or were they lying in some ditch, lifeless, chewed down to bone like so many others I've passed? I don't let myself think about them much, not in full detail. It hurts too much. But tonight, I saw Ethan's face in the flames, smiling. Mouthed the word Dad. Then it faded to black. When I woke up an hour later, Michelle was gone. I shot to my feet, yelling her name. The others stirred. Leo grabbed his shotgun. Hannah gasped. "She's gone out the back," Derek said, pointing toward the open rear door. I ran. Into the snow, through the trees, following a trail of blood and bare footprints. I found her maybe 50 yards out. She was kneeling by the tree line, coughing up something dark, her fingers twitching unnaturally. "I didn't want to wake you," she whispered as I approached. "I didn't want them to see me like this." "You shouldn't be out here," I said, kneeling beside her. She grabbed my hand. "Damon, I'm scared." I held on to her. "Me too. I think it's happening." I didn't speak. I just looked into her eyes. Still blue. Still her. "I can feel something inside me," she continued, "like it's watching from behind a curtain, waiting to step forward." "What do you want me to do?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Then, "I want to watch one more sunrise." I nodded. We sat there together until the cold crept into our bones. Then I helped her back inside. The others didn't say anything. Not even Leo. Everyone just watched us, like we were carrying something contagious that words couldn't contain. We got Michelle warm again. Fed her broth. She didn't eat much, but she smiled. Said it reminded her of camping trips with her brother as a kid. She thanked me for not leaving her out there. I didn't tell her the truth, that I almost didn't go after her. Not because I didn't care, but because I was scared that when I found her, she wouldn't be her anymore. This world is cruel that way. It keeps making you choose between love and survival. And either way, you lose a piece of yourself. Tomorrow, we plan our next move. The lodge is secure for now, but food won't last forever. If Michelle worsens, I'll have to do what I promised. I pray it doesn't come to that. But I've seen what this infection does, and I refuse to let her become one of those things. Not her. Not Michelle. End of entry. March 29th, 5:44 p.m. Old construction site, Highway 509, northeast of Caladar. We never made it back to the lodge. We left at sunrise. Michelle insisted on coming. I said no. She said, "It's my choice." And that was that. She wrapped her arm in duct tape to slow the infection, whatever the hell it is. Covered herself in winter gear and leaned heavy on her axe. She looked pale, distant, but still her. We needed lumber, fuel, food, anything. Leo said he remembered an unfinished housing development off 509, maybe 10 miles out. He was right. Rows of empty frames, houses never completed. Just foundations, support beams, and skeletal 2-story outlines dusted in snow and mold. Sheet metal twisted in the wind. Tarps flapped like ghosts. The place looked dead. We split up. Tyler, Hannah, and Derek stayed near the truck to load anything useful. I went deeper into the half-finished development with Leo and Michelle. The first house we entered had stairs to nowhere and plastic sheeting stapled across open walls. Inside, it was cold but quiet. Dusty footprints, small ones, trailed off into the dark. Leo found propane tanks in the garage. Michelle found a case of instant ramen near a toolbox. I found the hatch. In the hallway, tucked under the stairwell, half covered by a warped drywall sheet, an old trapdoor nailed shut. No markings, no builder notes, just silence underneath. Leo didn't like it. Let's grab what we need and bounce. But Michelle, she stared at it. I hear something, she whispered. I pressed my ear to the wood. Faint, breathing. Not wind, not pipes, breathing. We pried it open. The hole dropped into blackness. An old crawl space? Storage? Hard to say. We climbed down. It smelled like copper and wet cement. Our flashlights flickered as we moved forward. The walls were covered in plastic tarp and slats of plywood, like someone was trying to build something down here. A makeshift room. A lab, maybe, or a holding pen. And that's when we found it, a hybrid, pinned to the wall with metal rods through its limbs. Its chest was open, stitched crudely back together, breathing slow and rhythmic. Wires attached to its skull, a feeding tube trailing into an old IV bag of black sludge. It was alive. Michelle fell to her knees, clutching her stomach. Leo raised his shotgun. We kill it, now! No, I said. We need to know what it is. I don't care what it is, he growled. It's breathing. That's enough. The thing opened its eyes, milky white. It looked at me, and then it smiled. Michelle screamed. The smile twitched wider, unnatural, skin splitting at the corners of its mouth like the skin couldn't keep up. Then it whispered something. I swear to God. Michelle. We staggered back. I raised the Remington. Do it, Leo barked. I hesitated. 1 second. 2. That's when it snapped the restraints. The rods tore from the walls with wet pops. The creature dropped to the floor like a spider unfolding. Its limbs bent wrong. Its spine cracked with every twitch. It screamed, but not loud. Low, like a growl forced through a broken pipe. Michelle collapsed, her head in her hands. It's inside me, she whispered. I can feel it moving. The creature lunged. Leo fired. So did I. We riddled it with buckshot and lead. It took 4 rounds to drop it. And even then it twitched, like it had more inside waiting to come out. We dragged Michelle up the ladder. She coughed black fluid, collapsed twice before we reached the top. Tyler was already yelling when we got outside. Infected! They're coming out of the woods! Hannah was screaming. Derek fired into the trees. Shadows poured in from the hills. Dozens of them, some crawling, some sprinting. One with no legs swinging from a fence post before leaping forward like a goddamn frog. I threw Michelle into the truck bed. Leo jumped into the cab and laid down covering fire. Tyler helped me push the gas cans and ramen inside. We barely got the engine started. Derek didn't make it. One of the infected caught his leg as he tried to jump on the back bumper. Pulled him down into the snow. He didn't scream, just looked at me and nodded once. I'll never forget that look. Back at the lodge, silence greeted us like an old ghost. We didn't speak as we unloaded. We didn't speak as we stacked the lumber. Tyler went to the roof. Leo sat outside by the fire with a bottle of old whiskey we found in the garage. Michelle laid on the couch, skin pale, sweat soaking her hairline. I sat beside her. You waited too long, she said. I know. I saw it, Damon, in the basement, in the trees, in me. She grabbed my wrist. It wants me to turn. I nodded, eyes burning. Do you still want to see the sunrise? She didn't answer. That was her answer. Leo walked in sometime around 4 p.m., shirtless, rifle slung casually. You won't do it, he said. You'll freeze up again. I stood. You want to talk? Let's talk outside. No, he snapped. We're doing this now. She's infected. She's a danger. We all saw it. Tyler walked in, heard the last part, froze. Michelle tried to sit up. Don't make him choose. Leo raised the rifle slightly. I already did. That's when Hannah stepped between us. She's human, still human. For now. I stared at Leo. Back off. He didn't. I chambered the Remington. That did it. He stepped back, stormed out the door. Silence returned. Michelle reached for my hand. I'm sorry, she said. I nodded, so was I. That night, she asked me to take her outside, said she wanted to feel the wind. I carried her to the porch. The snow had started falling again, soft, light like ash from the sky. We sat on a bench wrapped in blankets. I held her until her breathing slowed. She looked at me one last time and smiled, the same way she did the night we first found each other, in that ruined hospital hallway. Then she closed her eyes, and I did what I had to do. No one watched. No one needed to. I buried her at the edge of the lodge property, drove a broken signpost into the dirt as a marker, used her axe as a headstone. Didn't say any words, just stood there a long time, shotgun in one hand, the sky empty above me. I don't know if this world's gonna get better, but I know what I won't forget. What we lost, and what we kept. End of entry. March 31st, 6:22 p.m. Lodge outskirts, Eastern Flatlands. I didn't sleep last night. None of us did. Michelle's grave sat just beyond the lodge, where the trees thin and the moss grows soft beneath your boots. I check it twice a day, like she might need something. Like she might come back and tell me it was all a bad dream. She doesn't. Neither do the others. Hannah's gone quiet. Tyler barely speaks. Leo hasn't come back since yesterday morning. He took his rifle, his coat, and disappeared down the ridge with a pack of jerky and 3 shells. No goodbyes, no note, just gone. Maybe he thought I'd kill him for what he said. Maybe he's right. But maybe, just maybe, he couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't take what we've become. I wouldn't blame him. I spent the morning fixing the motorcycle. My old Yamaha WR250. It's been riding on the hitch mount of the truck since day one. I told myself I'd save it for when I had nowhere else to go. I guess now is that time. Fuel was low, but I siphoned enough from the truck to get maybe 100 kilometers out, maybe more if I coast the hills and don't run it hard. The tires held, the chain just needed grease. It started after 2 kicks. The sound brought Tyler running out of the lodge. "You're leaving?" he asked. I didn't answer right away, just looked at the open field ahead, the hills beyond. "There's nothing left here, Tyler, not for me." "You could stay. We could." "I buried too many friends on this mountain. I won't be the next name on a grave marker made from trash." He nodded slowly. Then, "Where will you go?" "West. That's all I could offer." Rumors said the Quinte region might still be holding out. Some said Napanee. Others said the U.S. border was sealed but still guarded. Who knows? Doesn't matter. I need the road. I need movement. Staying put feels like dying slow now. I went back inside to gather my last few things. Knife, sidearm, Michelle's compass, and my diary. I didn't want to take the shotgun. It belonged to the lodge now, like everything else we'd left behind. Hannah stood at the fire. "You sure about this?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I'm going anyway." She walked over, placed a hand on my shoulder. "If you find anything, anyone, send a signal, even if it's smoke on the horizon." "I will." She hugged me. That was the first time anyone touched me since Michelle died. Tyler handed me a piece of paper, a hand-drawn map, scribbled with possible roads and fuel stations, half guesswork and wishful thinking. "Thanks," I said. He looked down. "You were the closest thing I had to a dad since all this started." I didn't know what to say to that. Still don't. I walked out, slung the pack across the bike, kicked the stand, and looked back at the lodge one last time. Smoke curled from the chimney. The sun dipped low behind the trees. And then I kicked the throttle. The engine roared to life. I didn't look back again. The road felt like freedom. Wind in my jacket, cold slicing across my knuckles, everything behind me falling away with every curve and hill. Dead trees blurred into shades of gray and brown. The pavement was cracked, overgrown, but open. A clear path for now. I passed wrecked cars, old barricades, hand-painted signs warning of infected and bandits. I didn't stop. I didn't slow. There were no infected in sight, just the emptiness. The road narrowed, curved along the edge of an old lake. I saw canoes half submerged along the banks. A campsite long since abandoned. Fishing poles still propped up in rocks, lines tangled in wind. I hit a straightaway just as the sun dipped below the last ridge. The sky lit orange, then pink, then a deep blue bruised with purple. And that's when I saw it, a signal. Smoke, far off in the west, maybe 20, 30 kilometers out, rising in a long, thin trail above the trees. It wasn't wildfire smoke. It was controlled, intentional. Someone was alive out there. Someone like me. March 31st, 7:39 p.m. Mile marker 244, Highway 41. I've pulled over for the night, just off the shoulder. Found a spot with decent tree cover. The air is cold but calm. Stars are out. For once, I don't hear anything unnatural in the dark. No giggles, no growls, no hybrids. Just wind and my breath and the hum of life trying to push through death. This is my last entry. Not because I'm done writing, but because the story this book needed to tell is over. I've lost more than I thought possible. Family, friends, pieces of myself I'll never get back. But I'm still here, still writing, still hoping. And maybe, just maybe, that smoke means I'm not the last. If someone finds this diary one day, I hope it means the world kept turning. That someone made it through the ash and bone and darkness. If you're reading this and you're alive, keep going. Don't trust everything that breathes. Don't stop moving. Don't waste bullets. But above all, don't lose your humanity. I'm Damon Fryer, and I'm still on the road. End of diary.